I was a monster. I was a monster then, and I was a monster when I took Brittanee Drexel's life.
I am so glad my daughter was feisty. She fought back. You will forever carry the scars of what my daughter did to you, and I hope you are haunted by what you did to her.
An emotional day in court as the killer of Brittanee Drexel admits in front of her family and friends that he was the one who committed the crime. Raymond Moody will serve a life sentence without the possibility of parole for the murder of the Chili teen.
Moody found out his fate after pleading before a judge in South Carolina today. Drexel was killed while on spring break in Myrtle Beach back in 2009. News 10 NBC's Brett Davidson has been covering the case since that day. He joins us live outside the courthouse in South Carolina with the very latest developments. Brett.
Good evening, Deanna and Jen. We have been waiting 13 and a half years to learn what happened to Brittanee Drexel and who was ultimately responsible for her disappearance. This morning in this courtroom right behind me, we finally got that answer. It was here that 62-year-old Raymond Moody admitted that he murdered Brittanee and buried her body in a wooded area not far from where he was living. Raymond Moody walked into the packed courtroom finally prepared to take responsibility for the cruel secret he has kept for more than 13 years.
Mr. Moody, you want to plead guilty?
Yes, sir.
And with that, he admitted to the rape, kidnapping, and murder of 17-year-old Brittanee Drexel. Given a chance to address the court, Moody acknowledged the 20 years he spent in prison on previous child rape convictions were not enough.
I was a monster. I was a monster then, and I was a monster when I took Brittanee Drexel's life.
It brings to a dramatic end a mystery that eluded local, county, and federal investigators for many years. All along, it was Moody, who was targeted early on by police investigating Brittanee's disappearance. But somehow he managed to avoid arrest until May. The prosecution laid out before the judge the details of that night, April 25, 2009, saying Moody and his girlfriend saw Brittanee walking down the street and stopped to ask her if she wanted a party.
According to Mr. Moody's version of the events, Mr. Drexel voluntarily got in the vehicle at that time for the purposes of partying.
He told investigators he and his girlfriend Angel Voss took Drexel down to a campsite about an hour south of Myrtle Beach. He told them that after his girlfriend left, he raped Brittanee.
Once the act was completed, he realized that he was most likely going back to prison for his conduct and manually strangled her at the campsite.
Prosecutors say advances in cell phone technology and cooperation from Moody's girlfriend were keys to solving the case. While there is relief to have answers, the emotional torment was laid bare once it was Brittanee's family's turn to speak directly to her killer.
I hope you suffer in prison for the rest of your useless life. I have no regard for you, just like you had no regard for my daughter's life.
The defendant was and is, and I'm sorry, a perverted, sick monster. That this should never happen to anyone ever again.
Even Moody seemed to break down as he attempted to apologize.
I don't have the words to express how horrible I feel. And I've felt ever since that day very, very sorry.
Do you believe he's remorseful?
I do. I think anybody would be remorseful. The key is he wasn't remorseful until he was caught.
And with that, Raymond Moody was sentenced to life in prison without the opportunity of parole. One of the questions that came up for the prosecutor afterward was, are there other victims? That's a question a lot of people have asked. Are there other victims connected to Raymond Moody? At this point, the prosecutor says that is something that they are looking into, but at this point also, there is no credible evidence that they have right now that leads them to believe there are other victims. We are live in Georgetown, South Carolina. Brett Davidson, News 10 NBC.
Brett, thank you so much.